and you can be held accountable if your products end up in the hands of bad actors. David, what's CYA?
Consider your audience.
Consider your audience. Cover your ass. That's a tell. That could be a money launderer. Welcome to another episode here at the Grodega. We're going to talk about something really interesting today. It's called the KYC law. KYC, Know Your Customer law. So basically, if you're going to do business with someone, there's a basic diligence that's needed in order for you to do business. You got to know your customer. You can't just export to someone and not know who they are. There's a set of responsibility and diligence that you have to perform to make sure that you're not supporting a terrorist organization, you're not supporting a money laundering operation. If you're just going willy-nilly taking money from people and sending them products, you're in breach, and you can be held accountable if your products end up in the hands of bad actors or used in a way that's nefarious or counterintuitive to free market enterprise, right? So the idea of knowing your customer, KYC, is really interesting. Now, it's kind of funny because when I was in law school, I started law school. Actually, wait, we'll pause for a second. Actually, we can keep recording because got to throw this in front. This is like my thing, Got to throw that out there. I passed the bar, became an attorney for a reason, so I can put that on my desk, right? Saying David? When I was in law school, really interesting, right? I had it was like the first day of school. I'm in there, I'm taking notes. And the professor comes into one of the classes and they have all these acronyms, right, for things. The professor comes in and she's like, you got a CYA by KYC. And I'm like, oh my God, what does that mean? CYA. David, what's CYA?
Consider your audience.
Consider your audience. Cover your ass. Cover your ass. So I was sitting there, I'm sitting here in the law school, first day of class, professors, and I'm taking notes, very diligent in class. The professor's anyone have any questions? I'm like, what is CYA? The professor goes, cover your ass. But, same thing. You got to cover your ass and know your customer. Because if you don't know your customer, and you're just doing, business without, doing the diligence, then you can get in trouble. So this is something we're monitoring right now. There's an organization called the Bureau of Industry and Security, the BIS. They're bringing forward a new law that is the 50% rule, they're calling it, the 50% rule. In short, the proposed 50% rule is going to close a loophole right now where basically there is a list called the entity list, where if you get put on the entity list, you are basically persona non grata when it comes to doing business. You don't want to have your company named or have yourself named onto the entity list, because then you are restricted for whatever reason. Now, there's a lot of ways you can end up on that list, but in short, if you do end up on that list, people can't do business with you, or it's just not business as usual. Now, today, if you're on that list and you go ahead and you start a subsidiary company or another company, and that company isn't on the list, it's a loophole. That company can do business today. But the B.I.S. is bringing forward a 50% rule, which basically says that if an entity owns 50% or more of a subsidiary company or has interest in another company, then that company is also now not allowed to do business, and will also be put, guilty by association and be now part of the BIS 50% rule entity list. So it's something to be monitoring here. As you're doing your diligence, the best way to do diligence is go meet people in person, talk with them, do your diligence, get a reference. Before we open up any new market, we try and get a good understanding on who we're working with. And we've had tons of issues here. We learned the hard way here at Grovar about doing business with the wrong people. We had people who do things and we had no clue. How could we? We had an organization that was from South America. Organization was buying coconut milk, of all things. They would buy coconut milk and 2 containers of coconut milk. Big account, about $85,000 order of coconut milk comes in. We're all excited. It's going to South America. It's going to go to the supermarkets in South America. We'd ship them 2 containers of coconut milk, and then we'd get a reorder. And then next thing we know, we find out that they were using, it was a money laundering front. They were using our coconut milk as a front to take money that was dirty and make it clean. Now, how were they doing this? They were doing this by basically taking these containers, having them in their warehouse, and then they would have, 2 containers, 40 foot, that's 40 pallets, 20 in each truck, right? And they would take 1 pallet and they would put it into 1 container. So they would ship 40 containers with 1 pallet in each, but on the paper, on the manifest, it said that the containers were full. So they're paying, they're paying for 2 containers. They're using these 2 containers of inventory, putting it into 40 containers, 40 tractor trailers. And on paper, these tractor trailers are full and they're shipping them. And the buyers in South America are sending the money in for 40 containers, right? And in actuality, they're really just getting 2 containers, but they're paying off someone at customs or at the border or something. And the money, is getting cleaned, right? Because it's going from being used, wherever it was sourced from, and now it's being converted and washed into essentially air, because they were shipping 1 pallet and then a full 40 foot with room for 19 more pallets of just space. But on paper, the manifest said it was full. However, they were getting it through a customs clearance in South America from the foreign port. They were doing it, and this was their cycle. And here we are, not knowing any different. We're just up here. You want 2 containers? Great. And then maybe they had like a couple of those pallets would go be on the supermarket shelves, and then maybe they would send us some pictures of the product on the shelves. And we had no clue. Now, there were some telltale signs. How can you know you're dealing with a money launderer? A couple things. If you go tour their factory or tour their warehouse, your buyer, let's say you get an order in and you go tour their facility, and their facility is mainly empty. Most likely, that's a tell. That could be a money launderer. Why? Because on paper, they got their warehouses full. But in actuality, it's air. So you got to be careful with that. People in the art space too, if they talk about, they're big art dealers or art collectors, art is a great way to wash money, right? So be careful with that. A couple other things you want to look at is if you haven't vetted them out with the U.S. Commercial Service, the Commerce Department, the Foreign Agricultural Service, there are so many public assistance programs that your tax dollars are supporting. Check them out. If you're doing business with someone and they're in another country and they have little suspect to them, they don't have any references, this might be their first time doing something with an American company, pick up the phone, call the U.S. Embassy in that country. Believe it or not, they'll take your call. Just Google the embassy, get the contact information, call them up, tell them your situation, tell the operator what you're doing. They'll put you in touch with the appropriate personnel, and then they can help you do the diligence. In some cases, we even have representatives from the U.S. embassies going to the facilities, doing their own diligence and reporting back to us on whether or not we do want to do business with them. So this is really interesting seeing these new regulations come into play here, because it adds that extra layer here of people. You got to do your diligence to really understand who you're working with, know your customer, and make sure that they're not on an entity list, because then you could be brought into a mix of something that you don't want to be a part of. Another story of interest is we were selling the same coconut milk to the Middle East. Super excited, country in the Middle East, big retailer in the Middle East. We start selling to them. Next thing I know, we see on social media, the retailer is posting up a big special. And on the special right there is our coconut milk. And then at the bottom of the page, they got a little disclaimer saying 10% of all sales this month are going to support, it was a terrorist organization. a recognized terrorist organization by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So I'm seeing this advertisement in their country. That organization is not a terrorist organization, not recognized as a terrorist organization. The retailer is just doing something that's normal for their country. And then I see this, I'm like, oh my God. So you're telling me I'm indirectly supporting a terrorist organization by selling that retailer coconut milk? The coconut milk I'm selling now is being advertised, and a portion of all the sales of that coconut milk are gonna go support a terrorist front? Cut that off real quick, right? So these are the types of things that the unforeseen consequences of getting into international business is you can't just sell something to someone, take their money, and be done with it. There is a due diligence and actual visibility that's needed that you must have, and you should be reporting this back to the brands. The brands should know how their products are being represented and being used by the downstream buyers. If you are an exporter or looking to export or need help exporting, you're always going to think of us, but things you can do to prepare for this new up-and-coming BIS regulation, this 50% rule. You want to be proactive in reassessing your internal compliance. What's your framework look like to make sure that you know who you are doing your business with. Number two, you're going to strengthen any of your technology and systems. There's a lot of tracking software right now that you can include on your orders. So if you have a pallet of product that you're shipping out, you can put a little tracking fob. It goes with the GPS tracking. You can see in real time where your inventory is going, so you know where it's going. You're not getting, again, with any diverters, any bad actors aren't going to capitalize on using your product against how you would use it. And lastly, enhance your escalation procedures. So if you got your staff, make sure they're trained. If they need more training or they need more information, there's a lot of compliance tools online, a lot of training seminars you can book, and the public programs, the government-provided assistance programs, the Commerce Department, the Commercial Service, the Foreign Agricultural Service, export.gov, all these different entities are now available for your disposal. You can reach out to them and they can help you kind of educate you and your team on how best to make sure that you're doing the right things, not stepping on any feet that can get you in trouble. So again, upcoming Bureau of Industry and Security is looking to enact this 50% rule. It's going to impact all U.S. exporters. It's not just know your customer, it's know your customer and your customer's customer, and also know your customer and the entity you're dealing with, making sure it's not tied to another entity that's on this banned do not work with list. So again, always some fun facts, good stories, great experience here at the Grodega. Check back for more. If you enjoyed this podcast, check us out on YouTube, LinkedIn, or subscribe on Spotify or Apple. Like, comment, subscribe, and always go global here at Grovara.